Hello, this is an F-14. I like it because it's cool, big, fast, and loud. I'm going to tell you a little about it today. If I make mistakes or lack information, please kindly let me know, as yes, I say I know a thing or two about this airplane, but obviously I don't know everything. A while back, I made a video with almost the same purpose as this one, except it sucks. I have lots of free time and I want to make a better version. So we're going to start with the background of this airplane. After the failure of the F-14B, which was supposed to be an F-111 aardvark turned into a Fleet Defense Interceptor, the Navy began the VFX program. In 1969, Grumman was awarded the contract to build a swing-wing, tandem-seat, twin-engine Fleet Defense aircraft with a max speed of Mach 1.2, a Vulcan cannon, the AWG-9 radar, and the AIM-54 Phoenix. This resulted into one of the most radical plane designs of all time. The F-14 in the mid-70s was like the F-35 in the mid-2010s. It was 62 feet long with a 64-foot wingspan with the wings swept forward. The A variant was powered by two Pratt & Whitney TF-30 engines, which were originally designed for the F-111. While the TF-30s were powerful, they were proved to be extremely unreliable in a more fighter-oriented aircraft. What do I mean by that? The F-111 is not a fighter. The reason it failed as a Navy platform was because it was sluggish and unfit for carrier operations. The engine was not designed to withstand high angles of attack that were so common in fighter aircraft doing fighter aircraft things. This proved to be deadly, and it contributed to around 28% of the 144 F-14s lost over its service life. If you notice when looking at the rear of the F-14s, the engines were very spaced out, between them being a large flat surface intended for weapon stores. These interesting aerodynamics, along with the common compressor stall, which is starving the engine of air, or fan blade failure, commonly led to what is known as a flat spin, where the plane is headed almost straight down and is yawing rapidly and violently in one direction. This was commonly uncontrollable, and this was also what killed Goose, so go and throw eggs at the Pratt & Whitney building. Don't actually do that. The F-14 served for a healthy but short-lived 30 years from 1975 to 2006, commonly deploying to the Middle East. It was never really used for its intended purpose, only partaking in air-to-air engagements so often, because during its service life it never really had the opportunity to get in real air-to-air engagement. Originally, the TF-30s were supposed to be temporary and would be replaced soon after production, but it ended up serving in a lot of Tomcats until the 90s. The aircraft did end up receiving an upgrade, what would be known as the F-14A+, or the F-14B as it's more commonly known. This variant of the F-14 was fitted with two General Electric F-110 GE400 afterburning turbofan engines capable of producing 27,000 pounds of thrust per engine and afterburner. The F-110 not only solved the reliability issues, but also severely improved thrust and engine response. The F-14B was at the time the most powerful fighter. These new engines combined with its weapon systems made it formidable. Speaking of the weapons, let's talk about them. Now, most of the airplanes at the time had AIM-7s and AIM-9s, sure, and a rotary cannon. But the bread and butter of the F-14 were the AIM-54 and the AWG-9 radar. Both of these were built to work in conjunction with each other. It took until 2005 when the F-22 was fitted with the APG-77 when a more powerful radar was put into an airplane, and even then it only had AMRAAMs. But before then, this combination was the most powerful missile radar combination ever fitted onto an active service fighter. The AN AWG-9 radar was a pulse Doppler radar developed by the Hughes Aircraft Company. It was capable of tracking 24 targets at once and could guide all 6 Phoenixes that the Tomcat could hold at once. The Doppler filter allowed the radar to filter a flying airplane from interference like the ground, clouds, birds, etc. This was all operated by another human in the second seat of the airplane, the Radar Intercept Officer, or the RIO. Obviously, you need a pilot to fly the airplane, but the RIO did almost everything else. The pilot had his fair share of responsibilities, but it was the RIO's responsibilities to navigate, use the radar, countermeasures, and act as a second pair of eyes for increased situational awareness. Eventually, in the 90s, it was apparent that there was no longer a need for a Fleet Defense Interceptor anymore, so the Navy thought, How could we use the F-14 differently? Well, the F-14 was maintenance hungry, needing 30 to 50 maintenance hours per flight hour. This is because of its high complexity with the radar and swing wing and so on. This led to the consideration of premature retirement, as there was no need for fleet defense and it was vastly more costly to operate than other airframes. The Air Force was using something called a lantern pod aboard their fighters like the F-15E and the F-16. A small team of engineers and civilian contractors devised a low-cost adaptation program to jerry-rig a lantern pod to an F-14 in an effort to give it a precise long-range strike capabilities. It worked, and by being one step further into crossing the gap between analog and digital aboard the Tomcat, the airplane now served a much-needed role, as at the time the Navy commonly deployed to the Middle East to strike targets, rather than shoot down targets. Now we won't talk about the F-14D as it is not in DCS, although the F-14BU will drop very soon at the time of recording. Now we can move on over to the game and begin talking about the exterior, what makes it different from other aircraft. We'll start up front and work our way backwards. Now all planes have a nose cone, but let's take a look underneath the cone. Here we see a DCS pod, or a television camera system. When I flip this switch here on this display in the middle here called the VDI, I get a camera feed from the DCS pod, which will greatly improve situational awareness in a within visual range environment. When I lock a target with the radar, the DCS pod will automatically salute the target and give me a visual representation of what I have in my sights. We'll talk more about this later. As we move back, we see the tandem seat configuration with the pilot up front and the Rio in the back. Now let's take a look underneath the airplane. You will notice that between the two engine inlets on the bottom of the plane is just a large flat surface. Let's also look at the wings. They're huge with, again, a 64-foot wingspan when extended. Let's look at the ailerons. They are also gigantic. And you see when I move them that they move a ton of air when in motion. And let's also remember that the F-110 engines produce a total of 54,000 pounds of thrust when an afterburner, with a standard combat load of 61,000 pounds. That gives this airplane all the lift it could ever possibly need. Now why might I need this in the first place? Well, let's take a look at the F-A-18 Super Hornet. It's considerably larger compared to, say, an F-16. It also has very large surface areas and control surfaces. Let's also take a look at the F-35C. It has a considerably large wingspan compared to the F-35A, and it also has a very large control surfaces. What am I trying to say here? Well, I'm saying that in order to land on an aircraft carrier, an airplane must have very good low speed handling characteristics. When at a high angle of attack, all three of these planes handle better than any type of airplane. This is important because landing on a carrier is notoriously difficult. What does this mean for our F-14 here? While the F-35 might have great low-speed characteristics and a powerful engine, it loses out in terms of thrust to weight to the F-14 across all spectrums. One thing you have to remember in DCS is that only aircraft you're worrying about is the F-16 and the F-A-18 and sometimes the F-15C. The F-14 on paper is the most powerful airplane in game in all respects. We will come back to this later. Now underneath the airplane is where you would store the Phoenixes and two drop tanks that hold roughly 2,000 pounds of fuel combined. To the side we have glove pylons that can carry any store you like. While the upper one carries sidewinders usually, the lower pod can carry Phoenixes, sidewinders, sparrows, bombs, lantern pod, etc. Above this would be the wings. This is where it gets fun. The F-14 doesn't have simple aileron and elevator. To help with the Tomcat's unusual architecture, the Tomcat uses a wide variety of moving parts to move the airplane. On the shoulder of the airplane we have these things called glove vanes. As the wings swept backward, as the plane accelerated, the center of lift also shifts backward. To maintain level flight in this circumstance, you would have to pitch the airplane up to keep the nose pointed forward. This introduced drag, therefore ruining the point of swing wing design. To compensate, glove vanes were introduced to help produce lift more toward the front in this event. They are stowed until the wings were swept backward and the forward center of lift was needed. Turns out this shift to center of lift was not needed. The performance gain of having glove vanes was minor, and these vanes proved to be a maintenance nightmare as they jammed and leaked fluid commonly. As a result, the mechanisms were removed and the doors were welded shut as time went on. Moving on to the wings up front, we have slats. Slats were common as methods of improving high AOA flight characteristics by producing extra lift. Around the middle of the wing, we have these spoiler-like surfaces called DLC, or direct lift control. These things, while simple, are basically magic feeling when flying the airplane. These are primarily used during landing to control descent. When the gear and flaps are down and the HUD is in LDG or landing mode, and you press the countermeasure button on the side of the joystick, the DLCs pop out and they allow for two things. Mainly just by producing drag. When they deploy to maintain speed, you have to throttle up. What this does is it allows for better throttle response, as when at higher throttle settings, the engines respond quicker compared to lower settings. This is imperative in situations like carrier landings when quick reactions to disruptions are important. Now when I open the DLCs, the flight path marker drops. When I retract them, the flight path marker goes up. When I open it all the way, it drops even more. This concept is so useful when landing on carriers, as it makes them being perfectly on the glide slope very easy. As we move a little further, we see spoilers. These are used primarily for rolling the airplane. They do deploy for other purposes, but are mainly used to roll the airplane. Now on the trailing edge, we have the flaps and temporary ailerons. Well, why are they temporary? Well, when the wings are fully extended, there are no obstructions and the flaps and ailerons can move freely. But as you see, when I sweep the wings back, one of the control surfaces are now angled outward, and I have no idea how that would work if I tried to steer an airplane with them. But more importantly, they're obstructed by the fuselage. Now how does the plane roll if I can't use the ailerons or the spoilers? Simple. Boron-coated tungsten fiber epoxy composite ailerons. With the wings swept, all surfaces are deactivated to keep flush with the swept wings. So these ailerons, as they're called, both roll and pitch the airplane at the same time. However, when the wings are not swept, the ailerons serve as gigantic pitch and roll surfaces. You can freak some people out with how you can manipulate the airframe to do some crazy stuff with them. Now let's move up toward the rudder. They just look like normal rudders, right? Well, that's because they are, so how are they different? Well, is it because they're two tails? No. Lots of planes have two tails. It lies more in the flight characteristics. When I'm around 20 degrees of angle of attack and I try to roll the airplane, nothing happens. The plane is going to start to veer off to one side and the ailerons don't roll the plane at all. Now I'm in the same situation with the rudders, and I roll the airplane with the rudders, it does pretty much whatever I want it to. All this to say that the rudder matters so much more on this airplane than it would on others. Now we talked quite a bit about these earlier. This being a B model and having the F-110 engines, what I want to mention is how far spaced out they are. If I'm in a vertical climb, and I'm going very slow, I'm on the verge of stalling and I kick one engine into burner, and I'll leave the other one alone, with some rudder the nose will kick around incredibly fast and I'd be pointed at the ground in no time. Why is that? Well then, let's look at another twin-engine jet. For instance, an F-18. The engines are right next to each other. If one fails, the center of thrust will still be relatively forward. Now when you spread them apart, one fails, the functional engine will produce a lot more lateral instability, which can cause spins or unwanted flight characteristics. That's the outside of the airplane. Let's move inside. This is what the pilot seat looks like in an F-14B. As you can see, most of this stuff is analog, besides the TID repeater down here, VDI here, and the HUD here. I'm going to give you an in-depth look around here, explaining what most of this stuff does, unless either I don't know what it does or it serves no function. Alright, here we are in the cockpit of the F-14. Very beautiful, very nice. We're going to start a tour around the whole thing. We're going to start up and back and move from left, up, and back to the right. So we're going to start up here. You can't really see it, but right here is the ejection seat safety. If the pin is up, the seat won't fire. If the pin is down, it will. Moving down here, we have behind this hose here, we have the pilot oxygen. Supplies oxygen to the mask of the pilot. Over here we have the volume knobs for the RWR, Sidewinder, growl, and what is this, radio for the pilot. We have our TAC and command here. I can switch it between pilot and non-flying officer or the relay. Here we have our intercom settings. We can change it from cold mic to hot mic, and all that good stuff. That's for talking to the Rio. We have our TAC-in controls here. We have the channel selector switch, so this bottom wheel will change the 10s and this top one will change the 1s. We have our built-in test button here. It's a fun button. You see some fun little lights here. We have our channel X-ray or Yankee. X-ray would typically be ground stations, and Yankee would typically be stuff like your flight lead or tankers or something like that. Here we have the function selector, so we have off, record, track and receive, or no, off, receive, track and receive, and air-to-air and beacon. So off turns it off. Receive means you're just receiving telemetry. Track and receive would allow you to track where that source is coming from. You have air-to-air, which will allow you to track airborne TAC-in stations, and you have beacon, which will allow other airplanes to have a TAC-in from you. Moving up, we have the UHF radio. We have the function selector here. We have off, main, both, and ADF. We have the preset channel selector. So right now the mode is in preset, so I can change the preset radio. Speaking of preset basically whoever designed the mission will have preset radio frequencies on these different channels here. And then you have manual, which will allow you to manually change the frequency. So this knob here would change the 10s. This one changes the 1s, tenths, and the hundredths in frequencies of 25. We have the volume knob here. Moving over to our AFCS panel, we have the autopilot functions. And the stability augmentation. So the stability augmentations basically just dampen the flight controls and make the plane easier to fly. If we move on over here and I unpause the game, let's say I'm doing maneuvers and I'm flying the airplane, whatever, having a good time, and I want to level off and just have the plane fly in a straight line. Well, when I turn on the autopilot, it just holds the airplane at this attitude. And I can change the attitude at which it holds me. If I wanted to bank left, I can just roll the airplane like this and it'll hold that. And I want to level back out and it'll hold it right there. And also we see when we look down here, we have the heading, ground track settings, altitude, automatic carrier landing, and vector and PCD. So let's say I want to turn on the altitude hold. I'm just gonna turn on the altitude hold switch, and you'll see this light come on here, autopilot reference. And basically what I'm just going to do is I'm going to press the nose wheel steering button, you see this light will extinguish, and I'm now at an altitude hold. Let's turn active pause back on. Turn our autopilot off. Alright, so now we have our engine quadrant, or throttle quadrant. We have the engine mode select here. We have primary and secondary. These will basically serve as a alternatives if your engines fail and you need to restart them. You have your asymmetrical thrust limiter, so as you can see, we can move one throttle at a time, and there must be a limiter on there, so like I can't punch one in the burner and leave the other one idle, so you can limit that, or you can turn the limiter off. You have your air start switch here. If the engines give out and you have to restart them while you're flying, you can just flip this switch on, follow whatever procedures, you can crank the engines and they'll start. Here we have the rudder trim back here, which doesn't function. We have our throttle temperature and throttle modes here, which you're not going to mess with. Engine crank, this is important. If you want to start your engines, you would crank them with this switch here. So if I'm trying to start the right engine, I would right click the switch and it would crank the right engine, left click crank the left engine, and so on. You have your inlet ramp controls here. So inside of the inlets you see these little ramps here. That's what that's referring to. Now we have a throttle quadrant. So, just a little bit. Up here we have the wing sweep. So I can click on the cover and I can actually reach the handle, or with the bind, let's go here. I can move the wing sweep forward and aft with a button on the HOTAS here. So I think if we unpause the game, if I want to turn my autopilot on so I don't have to pay attention, I can manually sweep the wings as I choose. Right? You see it's automatically moving. That's usually what you're going to have it in. So if you look up here, you'll see it's in auto right now. That's usually what you're going to have your wings in. And you also have the degree indicators here. This white tape being what the wings are at. We can come back down here. We have our throttle, our left and right. And we have our flaps handle, which we're not going to mess with because they jam really easily. Let's move up here. We have the master reset button, which basically resets the central air data computer in the case that we ever have to mess with our emergency wing sweep handle here. It basically just tells the computer something's different here and to adjust accordingly. We have our anti-skid and spoiler brakes. So right now it's set to both, meaning both the anti-skid and spoiler brakes are operating. Spoilers being these things here. Right? We talked about that earlier. And anti-skid, which basically stops you from drifting out the runway and dying when you land. And you can switch that to off, turn both of them off, and spoiler brake just to turn on the spoilers and not the anti-skid. Moving up here, we have a fuel dump. Self-explanatory. If I am flying the airplane and I want to get rid of some weight, I can fuel dump. Get rid of some weight. Now we have over here our fuel probe switch. So right-clicking once will just bring it out, and it'll only supply fuel to the fuselage tanks. Right-clicking again will supply fuel to the external tanks and the wings. Now, move on over, we have our fuel quantity selector. So if I'm looking here and I want to see how much fuel I have in my external tanks, I'm just going to click it down, and you see I have no fuel in them as of now. And I can also see how much fuel I have in my wings. Now we have our basically our flight control indicators here, so you see I can move my rudders left to right, and I can move the ailerons. So you see when I roll left, let's see if we can get a good view of this. You see when I roll left, the right aileron comes down, the left one comes up, and the left spoilers come up. And vice versa. And that can be indicated there. And you can also use it to track, I know you can see barely moving, but you can also use it to track how much trim you have. Just don't trim inactive parts. This is lesson of the day. Alright, let's continue. We have wing external transit, something like that. We have auto override and off, and turning it off basically restricts fuel flow from the wings to the main fuel lines, in case you ever had to have a leak in your wings or something like that. You have your fuel feed cover here with your switch. You're not going to be messing with that much. Let's move up a little bit. We have our hydraulic isolation switch, which isolates the landing gear from the main hydraulic lines. We have our landing gear hook here, lever here. So move it down. We have this gear down lock override. We have our nose strut here. So basically, when I am trying to hook up to a catapult, and I click down on that and I left click it, the front landing gear will come down and it'll kneel down, and the nose strut will come out. I'm allowing us to hook up to the catapult, and to manually retract that and bring the nose back up, I can right click it up to extend. Now we have our parking brake here, eject command here, meaning if I come back here and I look down here, you see right now it's set to the pilot, so if the pilot were to pull the ejection handles, both planes would shoot out. If I pull it back, you'll see the command will change. No, it doesn't. I guess that's not modeled, that's okay. So now we have our emergency storage jettison, a very big, fun red button. You click it. All your stores, besides these sidewinders up here, so stuff on the bottom, drop tanks, and 1B and 8B will all drop in case of an emergency. Right now here we have the a bunch of different stuff here. We have slats, flaps, gear, and speed brakes. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pause the game and just slow down just a little bit here, as to not jam the gear flaps. And you can see when I do that, that the landing, that the speed brake indicator is open. I bring it in. The in transit will show that, and now it says in. So now we're going to put our gear down and our flaps down. And now everything's moving. So if I look out, our slats are down. Our slats, or our flaps are down, and our landing gear is down. Now if I wanted to retract all that stuff, we'll see it is now in transit. Flaps are up, slats are up. Nose gear's up. And the rear landing gear's up. Come on over here, we have our landing checklist: armament, fuel, hook, anti-skid wings, wheels, flaps, autopilot, auto throttle, DLC, and harness. We have our radar altimeter which indicates our altitude above the physical ground beneath us. We have our barometric altitude, which indicates our height above sea level. We have our speed indicator, the speedometer. So you see this little kind of cone shape here surrounding this 20. That is our speed in knots. So you see it says 10, 12, 15, being 100, 120, 150, 200 knots. And this cone will move around here as our knots increase. This little triangle here indicating our Mach number. You see we have 0.5 Mach, Mach 1, Mach 1.6, all that stuff. Over here we have our vertical speed indicator, so you see if I unpause the game, you'll see it starts going crazy. Because our plane's going crazy. Let's fix that. Well, that didn't go so well, but flat spins are tough to get out of. Turns out this asymmetrical thrust limiter is very useful if you're ever in a flat spin, so that's nice. We were talking about our vertical speed, so if I shut off the active pause and I pitch up, you'll see it comes up, and I pitch down, and it drops. Alright, now down here we have our RPM, rotations per minute, on the left and right engines, exhaust gas temperature, and you can't really see it here, but we have our fuel flow, and we have here our engine nozzle indicator, so you see when I throttle up and come into afterburner, you see they open up, and when I come out of burner they close all the way. Now we have our oil pressure here, hydraulic pressure here for combined flight, spoilers on, emergency flight high and low. Let's come up here. We have our fuel shutoff and fire extinguisher in case your engines crap out. Alright, now here, here we have our ACM panel. Now we're going to look at it from here. We'll start up here. We have our stall lights for the left and right engines. This is more of an issue on the F-14A with the TF-30s. These lights will come on, start flashing, start beeping at you if your engines stall out. And over here we have landing gear indicator, parking brake indicator. We have our AOA index. We have the green. The green basically means your AOA is too high. The yellow donut means you're on speed, and the red means you are too fast or your AOA is too low. Down here would be your AOA in units. We have these little orange markers indicate the best AOA for optimal fuel mileage. Here we have our ACM cover and switch. So when I flip this up, it does a few things. One, it basically just puts the airplane into a dogfight mode. You'll see if I turn this off, you'll see that when the cover is closed and then I open it, it'll put the gun rate into high because typically you want to be on a high gun rate for air-to-air engagements. It'll also do a few more things like as soon as I fire a Phoenix with the cover open, it'll come off with the rails active, meaning it'll use its own radar, meaning I can shoot it and I can just forget and fly away and it'll track. And we also have our jettison button under here, which pretty much does the same thing as the emergency jettison. Then we have seam lock here, collision lights here, and hot trigger, meaning if I have a weapon selected and I turn on the master arm, it'll tell me that the trigger's hot. Now we have our weapons prep here. We have our gun rates. High shoots the gun at a low rate, or no, low shoots the gun at a low rate. High shoots it at a high rate. Now, Sidewinder will cool the seeker head on any Sidewinders you have on. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to track properly. And missile prep preps your radar missiles, your Sparrows, and Phoenixes. Here's your master caution here. You have your missile mode here. We have normal and bore sight. Here we have the stores. We have 1A, 1B, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8B, and 8A. 2 and 7 would be your fuel tanks. So if we come out here, we have 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8B, and 8A would be your weapon slots. So now here we have our wing sweep. You see I can automatically, I can mess with it in a few ways. One, let's look at our controls. We have auto, bomb, forward, and aft. So auto leaves the central air data computer to decide what angle it's at. Bomb puts the wings in a 55-degree angle. This is mostly for bombing, obviously, and aerial refueling to have optimal control over where the engine's pointing. Now I can also have the computer put the or I can manually change the angle at which the wings are at. I guess you can't put it above what the computer says you can, but you can put it back. Alright, now we come up here. I'm going to turn the lights back on. We have some other lights here. We have the RWR warning lights. We have SAM, AAA, and airborne intercept, or other airplanes. Let's come down here. See, we have our VDI. Now I have a few stuff on the side here. Most of this would be for automatic carrier landing, such as ACL ready, autopilot, CPLR, ADG aircraft, command control, 10 seconds, auto throttle. We have our autopilot reference, voice, all that good stuff. Now, we have a few controls for our HUD and VDI. We have the HUD brightness. We have the VDI brightness. Right? And we have the VDI contrast, which would be for the TV camera, which we'll look at here in a second. We have the VDI trim, which will trim the pitch ladder, and we also have the HUD trim, which will do the same thing, but for the HUD. And we have HUD filter, which puts a red filter on the HUD for nighttime use. We have the same thing in the middle. By clicking in the middle of the VDI, we have the same thing for that. Over here we have some more warning lights. We have our engine fire lights. We have the left and right fire, and we have some autopilot controls. We have wave off, and then we have wing sweep and reduce speed. Let's come down here. We have our HSD. We have the HSD select heading, which here we'll go to tack in, and you see that I can move this little chevron around. We have the brightness. We have the course, which moves this arrow. We have the test, and we have a little warning light here. Under here, you can't really see. It's just some pressure, altitude stuff. I don't really have anything to get a look under there. We have some circuit breakers here that don't function. We have, let's move up here. We have our standby ADI. So I can cage it and mess it all up. You see it has climb and dive on it. Light blue being you're pitched up, black being you're diving down. We have our compass here. We have our RWR here. We see N would be our airplane. And we have the 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 o'clock positions marked around the side. We have our radio indicators. You see both me and Jester's radio is set to preset 1. We have our takeoff checklist. Brakes, fuel, canopy, seat, stabog, trim, wings, flaps, control, and harness. We have the right fuel shutoff and fire extinguisher. We have our canopy jettison. Don't touch that. Now down here we have our fuel indicator. We have the bingo, which we can manually adjust with this knob here. The total amount of fuel we have in pounds. And we have our left and right fuel feed. And we have a visual representation of how much fuel we have with these tapes. Now we have the amount of G's we're pulling here. A clock here showing the time. Over here we have the emergency, we have a fuel hook. I don't know why I was reading that. We have a tail hook here, meaning when I come out here. We have the amount of rounds we have in the gun, so if I come up here and see when I fire the gun, the amount of rounds we have goes down. When we come down here, we have the display panel. So you see the HUD has a few different modes, and we'll talk about the HUD now. Let's turn these lights off. So, let's keep an eye. I'm going to pitch the airplane down a little bit so you can see the HUD better. So, we have takeoff. Up here we have our heading tape. So it would be this number times 10. So we have 100, 110, 120, etc. This little chevron would indicate where our nose is pointed physically. We have our pitch ladder, vertical speed, and this little airplane marker would indicate our pitch angle on the pitch ladder. HUD would just give us a pitch ladder from -30, +30 with the little airplane symbol and our heading tape and nose position. Air to air is even less, just without the heading tape, and it gives us a little crosshair. Oh Jesus. Okay, it's doing the same thing again where it's trying to pitch us all the way back when we go into active pause. We're going to fix that. Alright, so now you can see we have the heading tape, both the crosshair and the nose placement thing. Our little airplane -5 and +5 degrees on the on the climb ladder, and we have a path marker, which basically tells you where the airplane's going to end up if we keep this course, and we have our radar altitude here, and we have landing mode. All the same stuff, except we have our vertical speed here and our AOA index kind of visual representation here. So when this comes level with this little left wing of the airplane, that means we're on speed. We have some switches here. We have declutter on the HUD. I flip this up, it'll get rid of some of the clutter up on there. And we have our all-weather landing ACL or ILS. Here we have our VDI. Change it between normal, which would be this kind of ADI looking thing, and the HUD, or on the TV. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to not stall out first. And we're going to get a view of this airfield here. So, we'll pause it right here. And we're going to look here. So we see how we have a lovely view of this airfield here, and I can change the brightness and the contrast to get a more clear image depending on what I'm trying to look at. And we have the all-weather landing ACL or ILS option here. HSD, I can switch it between the nav or a TID repeater, which would be this here. Basically a digitalized version of what the radar is seeing. It's for just general situational awareness. And we can flip it down to ECM, but that's mostly for the F-14A earlies that don't have a dedicated RWR panel. Same for the ECM override switch. And then we have the power switches for the VDI, HUD, and HSD. We have our steering commands down here. We have TAC-IN, destination, all-weather landing, vector, and manual. We have our pitch ladder brightness, and we have the elevation lead for the pipper. Come on down here, we'll turn these lights back on. You see we have spoiler override. You won't really have to touch these. You have your amount of oxygen, of liquid oxygen you have in liters. You have your warning panel here. You see you have stuff like the inlet ramps, generators, wing sweep, jettison, stability augmentation, all that good stuff. We have the flaps. What? Not flaps. We have generators here. You won't have to mess with that much. You have your compass controls up here. You won't have to mess with that. We have our ANARA 63 controls, which is for carrier landings, to just give more precise information when going for carrier landings, whether it's case 3 or case 1. We have the power switch here, built-in test button here, and we have the channel knob. So whatever carrier is in your mission will have a set ICLS channel, and you would change it with this knob. Here we have our lights. We have the ACM panel lights, which basically when I turn it down, or you know what, we'll probably have to. So I can turn them down. You'll see these lights will come. Then we have the AOA index light, which isn't giving us anything right now, but I think you see that it'll come down if you're looking at the top left. We have the instrument lights, which you can kind of see. They kind of get a red tint, so for in nighttime you'll see these lights will come on in the instruments to make them red, make them see. We have the console lights. So down here you'll see they'll kind of get a red tint. And we have formation lights. Now we have the position lights. We have the wing, tail, and we have the option if I want them to flash or stay steady. We have the anti-collision lights. We have the hook bypass, so if we're operating off a carrier, we'll have it set to carrier. If we're operating off an airfield, we'll have it set to airfield. We have our taxi lights, and we have our white and red floodlights. Now you see, if I come out here, and I go to adjust controls, and I look for exterior lights master switch toggle. Give me a second for the wings gear to come on down. You'll see that when I press L on the keyboard, all these lights will come on. Very nice. So we'll turn that off. Coming down here, We have our air condition panel. We have the temperature, cabin pressure, ram air. We have our air source, so you can decide whether the air is sourced to the ram, left engine, right engine, both engines, or nothing. We have our light test switch here. Say I wanted to test fire. Or, you know, whatever. Very fun. We have external environment. We have windshield air if it's raining. We have anti-ice and probe. We have fuel hydraulic transfer pump switch shut off here, and we have emergency flight control switch here. That's it for the pilot cockpit. Now we're gonna go on and learn how to start. Alright, here we are in a cold and dark F-14. See, the engines aren't running, none of the screens are on, no noise, no nothing. It's silent out here besides the T-22 over there. So obviously we want to learn how to start the airplane if we're going to fly it. Because it's not always going to start being on, so let's do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go comms menu, ground crew, ground power.
Chief, turn on the ground power.
Turn it on. Then we're going to go ground crew,
Copy.
ground air supply.
Chief, connect ground air supply.
Wait for them to turn
Ground
that
power
on.
is now on. Copy. Ground air supply is now connected.
Alright, now we're going to open our gesture menu. And we're going to tell them by looking at the 3 o'clock position to start.
Copy.
We're going to come down here to our oxygen switch. Turn that on.
ICS comm check.
And over to our ejection seat. On it. Open our gesture menu.
Roger that.
Here. Turn the camera. Now we're going to wait for him to close the canopy.
Closing canopy. Check. Alright, let's start.
He's ready. We're going to come down here to our hydraulic transfer pump switch. Flip it up to the shut off position. We're going to come back here and we're going to go to our throttle. We're going to right click the right throttle. Turn off the fuel cutoff, and we're going to right click the engine crank switch. And this engine is going to come alive here. So we're looking for around 7,000 RPMs, around 500 degrees exhaust gas temperature, and around 1100 to 1200 on the fuel flow. Do the same thing for the left engine. Right click the throttle, and this time we're going to left click the engine crank switch. Wait for this engine to come on. Alright, both engines are running. Let's go on over to our comms menu. Ground crew, turn off the ground power. Disconnect ground air supply.
Chief, disconnect ground air supply.
For some reason you can't hear the crew chief when the canopy is closed, but you see it says ground power is off and ground air supply is disconnected. We're going to hydraulic transfer pump shut off, turn that off, set it to norm. We're going to go air source, set it to the left engine for 10 seconds. And we're going to come over and do the same thing for the right engine. And we're going to set it to both. We're going to come on over here to our display panel, turn on the VDI HUD and HSD. Come on over here to our stability augmentation. We're going to turn on the pitch, roll, and yaw. turn on our UHF radio, set the function to both. Come on over to our TAC-IN, set the mode to track and receive. And you can press this filter test a little bit. Now we have our ARA63 power. Turn it on. Now we have our ADI knob, standby knob, and we're going to left click it. We're going to go on over to our barometric altimeter, and we're going to hold right click until the standby flag goes away. And we have our radar altimeter. We're going to hold right click and scroll up on your wheel and set it to whatever you like. I like to have mine set to probably around 200 feet. You can set it higher. Now we're going to go on over to our displays, and we're going to go to HSD mode, and we're going to left click it, put it down to TID, and we're going to wait for adjuster to align. Now this may take a while, depending on the server. Most servers, multiplayer servers, should have store heading on in the aircraft configuration, which will put a little ASH knob here, or little sign somewhere around here when adjuster's aligning, and it'll allow the airplane to access previous data from when the plane was last on to find itself. I'm in a single player mission, so that's not on, so it's going to take around 5 to 10 minutes for it to fully align. So we're going to do that. Alright, adjuster is now done aligning. He will just start checking, making sure the lat and long is correct, the altitude, magnetic variation, all that good stuff. So you can see, while he was aligning, there are 3 marks, or 2 ticks, like in the middle. When that chevron comes to the second mark, you're good to tell him to just finish aligning, as that's the minimum weapon launch parameters.
We're ready to taxi.
Yeah, so he says he's ready to taxi. You don't want to go before then, because then your INS is gonna be all messed up, your HUD's gonna be off, and that would be good. So he's done. We're gonna go to our ground crew. Wheel chocks.
Chief, remove the wheel chocks.
And they are now removed. So we're going to disengage our parking brake, turn on our nose wheel steering, throttle up, and we'll begin taxiing. We're going to ignore the AI ATC because it sucks and it's annoying. Just note, usually you don't want to taxi directly over the runway with these taxiways here. That's only for people landing, so we're going to have to go all the way down to the end to take off. Usually you just want to, wherever the middle of your HUD is where your nose landing gear would be. So if I'm trying to line up on this line here, some small inputs, and my wheels should now be on the center. So that's a good rule of thumb when you're taxiing. Let's come on over the runway.
You're way too fast.
So you may notice we're at a different airfield. That's because while I was taxiing, I kind of maybe sort of went a little too fast, hit the brakes, and spun out and broke the landing gear. So don't do that. I was just getting a little impatient. It takes a while to taxi. But we're going to ignore that, and we're ready to take off. So we're going to first bring the wings forward, right click the sweep handle, close the cover, and click the master reset. Wings are coming out. We don't need that for now. And we're going to lower the maneuver flaps. And we are ready to go. So, we're going to throttle up just behind afterburner. You do not want to take off with afterburner because we're going to disengage the parking brake. You don't want to take off with afterburner because it produces way too much thrust and you can easily jam flaps and gear. We're going to keep an eye on our speedometer. We're going to turn off this booster. 150 knots. We're going to pull back. Just a little aggressive. Gear up. Flaps up. No, you don't want to pull back that hard when you're taking off. That was a little much, but it's okay. Let's go down here to our HUD mode. We're going to go cruise mode, and we're up. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to go ahead and take a look at the gesture menu. So we're going to go into active pause, idle the throttles, and when I go into my options and I click toggle menu, this gesture menu comes up. Now this is how you communicate. Gesture that way in your seat. So you have the contextual menu here, which will vary based on what you're doing, whether that be air-to-air, landing, air-to-ground, whatever. And here's your main menu with all the options. You can start here. Our first option would be gesture radio, his ANARC182. Click on it, and we have a few options. We have to tune to the guard frequency, which is we're gonna have him do that. We'll tune to the guard frequency, and I can have him use the manual preset and have him change the have him use the preset for channel 1. Now, let's say I want him to tune to a specific radio. Let's say I want to do 255, so I'd go click on that, 255, 0, 0.
You got it.
And he would tune the radio to 255. Now, I can also have him change the preset radio channels there. I can have him change the mode of his radio. We have off, track receive guard. Or no, transmit receive guard, and some stuff here. And we have the tune ATC if I wanted to tune a specific airfield or traffic control. And we have tune TAC, which would be for aircraft carriers or AWACS or something like that. Moving on, we have beyond visual range. This is mostly controls of the radar and TID. I can ask him to STT or single target track target. So I can have him just lock any target ahead of us, have him lock any enemy target ahead of us, have him track a friendly target ahead of us. I can choose a specific contact. I can have him choose the first track twist target or a specific twist target number. I can have them scan different elevations, either at angles, for example, low, middle, or high, or I can have him scan specific distances. Now, we have scan azimuth. You can scan either automatically or left, center, right, or right. We have radar TID range. So if I come down here, set the HSD to TID, I can have him change the range. So each of these lines and spaces would be 20 to 25 miles, I believe. So if I wanted to, so right now it's automatically at 100 miles. So I can have him shorten that, maybe if we're in a more dense airspace, or I can have him enlarge it in case maybe I want to have a bigger sight of the battlefield. Now, let's come on over to radar settings. I can have him just do it automatically. I can change the type of scan he's in. I can do track wheel scan auto, track wheel scan manual, range while search. I can change the target size setting, and I can also change the target aspect being nose mounted. Now, we have tip ground stabilize, which basically is a
Wilco.
method of navigation. So you'll see it'll basically look at it from a gyroscopic view. I don't know if that's the right word for that, but forward would be north, so you see we're kind of pointing off to the northwest at a heading of 295 we're at. So that's good for navigating. And we have go silent, which will basically have him shut off the radar by flipping the switch here to stand. Now, let's take a look at within visual range. There's one option, jettison drop tanks. So you would have to have your master arm on. We're not loading the drop tanks, but you would have to turn your master arm on and go to the visual range.
Roger that.
Drop tanks. And he would jettison our pretend drop tank.
Tanks are gone.
And obviously we don't have drop tanks. So now we have air-to-ground weapons. We're not going to look at this much. This is definitely more of a weaponry type thing. See, we have different options: select ordnance, bomb delivery mode, repairs, mechanical feed, vehicle settings, all the good stuff. We won't look at that for now. Navigation, this is where it gets fun. There's two ways of navigating. We have waypoints and we have tacking. One way you can give there's two ways of giving, there's three ways of giving gesture waypoints. So you see we have waypoint 1 and 2 here. Those were pre-made by the mission editor, so that's one way. Just have it pre-made. 2, you can have him manually enter coordinates for a steer point. Or, if I open my F-10 map, and I click on this circle here, mark label, and I clicked on the map and I called it whatever I like, and I go back to my airplane, I go to navigation, steer point from map, waypoint 1, and my
Got it.
my newly created waypoint from the map. Give him a second here. You'll see we now have a new waypoint. Now, navigation, tack in. Now, if I go down to my HSD, put it in nav, and set the steer command to tack in, and I want a gesture to, so first we have the modes. We have receive, track, receive, air-to-air, and beacon. We talked about what those were in the cockpit tour. I can have him select the channel by manually typing one in.
Traffic, fish bed, 4 o'clock, 2 miles.
I can have him tune to an airfield or a ground station, or I can have him tune to up here, which would be an aircraft carrier or another airplane or we have countermeasure and RWR. We have countermeasure mode. We have automatic automatic chaff and manual flare, manual chaff and flare off. We have flare mode. We have pilot, which means I'm in control as a pilot of the flares. Normal, which means jester is in control. Multi. Sure. Honestly. Chaff program, we have the different bands we can set it to. Or we have, so we see we have random, and we have the intervals and amounts at which these are run. Now, we go to flare program, same thing, sort of, except it's just the amount and the interval in which they drop. Go to control order. We have program, signal, type for chaff, and program, signal, and type for flare. And we have RWR display type. We have just display everything, just display aircraft, just display AAA, display unknowns, and just display friendlies. And we have set the jammer to transit. Remember the data link. This is how you would connect to aircraft carriers or AWACS for either radar or positioning. So we have mode, we have tactical data link system, which would be to AWACS or tankers, or not tankers, carriers, and we have fighter to fighter, which would be communicating with other F-14s and whatnot. Obviously, we have set frequency preset. So we have AI fighter to fighter, and it'll give me other options for other data link hosts, and I can have them manually set a host. So this would be a list of carriers and AWACS and stuff like that. Now we have crew contact. Now this was how I want Jester to operate. I can either have him do nothing and just sit there, which should be inactive, have him function but he just doesn't talk, which would be set no talking, and we have set eject both, which would mean he changes the option that the eject command is set to. And I can also have him disable alarms. So that's your Jester menu. There's a lot of stuff. We'll look at that further as we move on. So let's go land the airplane. Alright, here we are, lined up for a landing. I'm not going for any specific approaches here. I'm just going to tell you how to get the plane on the ground safely. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to see my HUD is kind of a little bright. I can't really see that well, so we're going to lower the brightness. It's good. Now, most important thing for landing, regardless, I don't care what you say, it's anti-skid. Now, if I could choose one thing to use to land besides landing gear and would not die, would be the anti-skid. That basically just makes sure that the wheels don't lose traction and you go flying off the side of the runway. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the hub modes and we're going to set it to landing. You see we get our flight path marker, our AOA indicator, radar altitude, and our vertical speed. We're going to put the gear down and the flaps all the way down. And from here, we're just going to work our best to keep this flight path marker on our landing zone, along with holding AOA and just keeping the plane in a straight line. So let's pause the game here. So first thing, let's not forget to bring out our DLCs, and let's trim the airplane out. So it really wants to pitch down, so we're going to trim up. And just make sure that it's holding. You see we're drifting way off to the left. That's very bad. We're going to fix that. And we're also just going to keep working to slow down and get that AOA on speed. So you see we got a little slow. We're just going to fix that. And we're just going to be working our throttle, try our best to keep ourselves on speed here, so we're doing too much. We're still a little left, we're going to work on that. Coming right, so we're coming a little low, throttle up, keeping that AOA index on, also keeping lined up with the runway. Still a little left, we're going to come right. Pitch the nose down just a little bit. I'm also dropping the throttle. Okay, it's a little too much. We're not going to go for a naval landing here and slam it. That's kind of what this thing's meant for. You don't have to land it that smooth, but we're just going to do it just for funsies. On the center line. We're going to drop the throttle, and that was not smooth at all, but that's okay. We're going to work to keep on the center line. We can pitch all the way back and use our ailerons as air brakes. We're going to slow down. We're going to turn on our nose wheel steering, and we're stopped. And we're going to come off the runway here. We'll bring our flaps forward. We're going to retract our wings. And we're going to have to click it up. So we're going to have to right click the wing sweep handle. This will deflate some bags underneath, which will allow us to, after about 15 seconds, put the wings into oversweep. Like that. And we're ready.
Well, that's about it. I hope this fulfills all your non-combat related Tomcat needs. And if I missed anything or got something wrong, I'd love to know. That way when I return, I'll be better. See ya.